Welcome back to the final session of this year's Energy Transition Conference. Now, under the title, From Vulnerability to Resilience, Key Messages and the Next Steps, we are going to try to gather all the threads from today's program and hopefully be able to tie some knots and close the loop. Now, there are going to be 3 short presentations in this session, followed by a dialogue session with our expert panel, once again on the first row. And this time I'm going to skip the short Q&As. I've been asking everyone a question, but I'm going to skip that this time and instead save all questions and comments for the panel or the dialogue later on, including whatever might be coming in Slido as well. So you may still ask questions and comment in Slido, but just be aware that I'm going to save everything to the panel. If the saying, to understand our presence, we need to know our past, is correct, it is wise to listen to the historians. And that's exactly what we're going to do now. Karl Erik Haug, he is a professor in modern history and the head of Department of Historical Sciences at NTNU. And he was previously professor at the Norwegian Defence University College. Norwegian foreign security and defense policy are at the core of his research, to which he has a comparative approach. So, the question is, what can we learn from a recent past to help us navigate through the intersection of energy, security, and strategic competition? Where should our focus be? Now, let's find out by leaving the floor to Karl Erik Haug. So, once again, give him a warm welcome.
Thanks for having me, and not the least giving me the opportunity to give you a brief history lecture. And I want to talk about war. When I talk about war and how I think about war, I usually begin with this painting by Paul Nash. We are making a new world. A landscape, no man's land, seen from the trenches of the First World War. In all its beauty, it still reminds us of something essential. War is destruction. War is death. War changes everything. And those who wage this war never truly knows what comes next. There are similarities between Nash's painting and this picture from the war in Ukraine. But the beauty is gone. Only destruction and death remain. And that is the reality of war. That is what war is all about. Yet somehow, we forgot this. How come? For the past 2 centuries, war has increasingly been seen as something abnormal. The Industrial Revolution and the emergence of liberal ideas and democracy created the belief that free trade and economic ties would secure peace. The beginning of globalisation reinforced this idea. Countries that depended on one another would have little, if any, reason to fight. But wars still came. The First World War, the Second. After each, the international community built institutions meant to prevent the next war. The League of Nations, the United Nations. Then came the Cold War. A tense peace based on no trust, but on the fear of a nuclear Armageddon. Still, having survived the Second World War, we remembered what war looked like, and we prepared for it. We built civil resilience. The end of the Cold War changed our mindsets. It was the end of history, as Francis Fukuyama wrote. The future belonged to peace, democracy, and free trade. So when the US-led coalition pushed Iraq out of Kuwait in 1991, it strengthened the belief that military power would now serve good purposes. The same year, the Soviet Union collapsed, and NATO began searching for a new role. First in the former Yugoslavia, and after 9/11 in Afghanistan. We got used to fighting wars in out-of-area operations, and humanitarian interventions became a part of our vocabulary. This could be seen as a part of this new globalized world, where, if we were to fight a war, we would do so as a part of a coalition led by the United States. War again became an instrument for politics, but these wars were wars of choice. We could go home, just as we did from Afghanistan, without having achieved any of our goals, if there was any. And here's the point. Even while we were fighting wars abroad, we convinced ourselves that peace at home was permanent. Russia was viewed as a friend and a potential partner, perhaps even a future NATO member. This belief shaped how we understood war, but it rested on the idea that the old kind of existential state-to-state war had disappeared. This was a deeply naive view. In Norway, even the Chief of Defense expressed this view around 2005. We reduced our military spending, and we didn't think about how a modern society could survive if the worst happened. We acted as if a major war never could reach us. Neither the war in Georgia in 2008, nor the annexion of Crimea in 2014 changed our mindset. It was only after the war, the full-scale invasion of Ukraine in February 22, that we again begin to wake up, but slowly. Let me show you this picture of the Kunstsilo in Kristiansand. This building once stored grain, food grain. Today it is an art museum, and that's a symbol of how we have thought about preparedness. From 1995 until 2003, we dismantled our grain reserves almost entirely. Instead, we believed in the gospel of globalisation, where everything could be bought and arrived just in time. Only in 2024, Norway again started to rebuild the grain reserves, but the goal was to get 3 months of supply. That goal will not be reached until 2029. So we need to talk honestly about war. The wars we see today are not the new wars described by Mari Kaldor, but they look painfully familiar. No rules, no respect for laws of war, and the civil society is being targeted. These are the wars we thought belonged to the past. And this brings me to my final point, because I need to say some few words about war and energy. Russia's invasion of Ukraine has placed energy at the center of warfare. Power plants, substations, transmission lines. Ukraine's energy system has been systematically attacked to break resilience and morale. This strategy raises fundamental questions about the future of warfare in energy-dependent societies like ours. Russia is not only targeting the energy system because it is considered a military objective. The real target is often the civil population. The energy system is simply the means used to hit the Ukrainian people. And we haven't seen this in Europe since the Second World War. It could become the new normal. That's what concerns me, and we must address it. Thank you.